Okay, I'm going to remove the canopy from this guy, and to do that, these little screws on these plastic clips have to be opened, and then these clips will release the canopy from the frame. So yeah, it's this tall clip here actually that was this guy, and I only ordered one of those because I knew I might not be using the canopy. So alright, let's unscrew those. Alright. Okay, and this little plastic piece comes off. And now what you need to do is, I think, probably get some pliers or maybe use a screwdriver to push in these little clips. And then you can pop this piece off. Let me see if I can do that with the screwdriver with one hand. Alright, there's the little clip. You lift this out first, and then there's the little clips that you can push. So I'll just push that and lift with my finger at the same time, and then I can get that to come off. And I do the same thing for all of them. And one more. This way. And now the autofocus is not. And now the canopy is gone. That's what it looks like. It was much lighter. This is fairly light, actually, but it's maybe 1/3 of the weight. So it's a considerable weight loss to take that off. And the next thing will be taking off the motor covers and so on. After removing that, I've also taken the jack shaft out. The reason for taking out the jack shaft was to take a look at the size of the bushing and see if the local business that sells bearings and hydraulic stuff near me has something in this size. And they didn't have anything on shelf or in their book, but they're going to see if they can get something this small and let me know. I don't want to have to order it all the way from China. But for now, I will use these bushings, and you really shouldn't actually oil them because they have carbon embedded in them, and the carbon is what lubricates the bearing surface. And putting oil in there fouls the carbon dust and makes it build up, and then you get dirt in there, and it just makes it wear and fail. So don't put oil on these. However, what you can put on them is this stuff. And kind of like the name Tefsol suggests, it is Teflon. So it's basically a spray-on Teflon coating. And as you can see here, it keeps all of its properties from minus 240 degrees Celsius all the way up to plus 300 Celsius. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll spray it on the sprockets and on the teeth, and I'll spray it on the jack shaft and on the, at least try to get it on the insides of these bushings. And I'll do that for all of them, and I think I'll even try to get it in the bushings on the actual motors themselves. And that way I'll have good lubrication on those, and I won't get any extra friction slowing things down. Alright, well, let's get spraying. Pretty straightforward to use. You just spray the parts you want it to be on, and that's it. Whoop. Yeah, got some of that solvent on the table. It smells like brake cleaner. So, I mean, I bet you the solvent is almost the same as in brake cleaner. I think I need to use my hands. I'll work off camera. The easiest way I found to take these covers off was to actually remove the boom and motor assembly as one piece, like this, and then pull the wire connectors through. And if you do them one at a time, you'll know where the wire connectors came from. And they only go in one way, so that's not a problem. And this one's also lubed up. It has, I'm not sure if it would be visible on video, but it has kind of a white crust on the top of that gear, and that would be the Teflon spray. One thing also is I straightened out my antenna instead of leaving it bent, and this should improve the range a little bit and have less dropouts. Alright, so now I've got everything set up the way I want, and I have the lubrication sprayed on. You can see the sort of white buildup on the gear there. You can see it some of the landing gear. There's one that you can see it clearly. Well, you can see it on the inside here. Anyways, that's it. So now I have all of the motor covers removed, and I have everything lubed up. So now it's time to break in the motors. Both of the batteries I purchased are now fully charged, and I think I'll just pop the original battery in first and give that a try so that I can break in the motors. So make sure that that's seated. It doesn't actually go all the way back, which means it might actually be a little bit out of balance, but the wires are in the way of it going any further. Interesting. I think that isn't good, because even if it can compensate for a slight imbalance, obviously, with the gyros, but that means that you'll be wearing out two of your motors faster, or one of your motors faster than the other ones, the more out of balance the copter is. But for breaking the motors, it doesn't really matter, so I'll just leave it there. Turn on the transmitter first. First time I'm turning it on. There's the display. The 40% rate is flashing. I'm guessing that's because that would be active. So what I will do is now plug in the copter. Difficult with one hand. I'll have to use both of them. Ooh, the lights start flashing. Okay, now the flashing has, I don't know, stabilized, I guess. So now if I bring up the throttle, it should start spinning the motors. There we go. That's as slow as I can get them to spin. It says 10% throttle. Oh, it even has an animation that the blades are spinning. That's interesting. This one is definitely going faster than that one, and it's speeding up. Very strange. Wow, it's really going.